Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Hello everybody, welcome to episode 192, take 2. Just a couple of things before we get to my interview with Ty. Seth Breedlove, myself, and the Small Town Monsters crew will soon begin filming the next iteration of On the Trail of. This time, we're on the trail of UFOs. We do have several upcoming trips planned to various parts of the country, but first, very fittingly, we are starting right here in my dusty little corner of the country. So, if you have a sighting or experience you'd like to share with us for inclusion in this upcoming STM production, you can contact Seth directly through Facebook, the Small Town Monsters website, or email him at sethbreedlove@yahoo.com. Also, I just found out about this event here in Las Vegas, and I will be attending. It is this coming Saturday, June 8th at 7 p.m. Joshua P. Warren presents Creepy Vegas. It's described as 60 fun paranormal minutes in a bar. Speakers include none other than David Weatherly, a couple of whose books you may know. They include Black-Eyed Children, Strange Intruders, and of course, Silver State Monsters, which I assume that is probably what he will be covering at this event. And Sean Kevin Jason will be there. He had an incredible sighting on the way to Area 51, so he will be covering that. So come join us. It's at the Millennium Fandom Bar, again, this coming Saturday, June 8th, from 7 to 8 p.m. Go to creepyvegas.com to get your tickets. It's been a while since I've mentioned some of the laundry lists, so please go rate and review Into the Fray in your listening platform of choice. It helps others find the show and more stories for you to enjoy. Home base for Into the Fray is, of course, intotofrayradio.com, and I am present on Facebook, Twitter, unfortunately, Instagram, and feel free to join the interactive Facebook group. Just search Into the Fray. And without further ado, here is Ty.
When people think of Iowa, they just think of farms and everything. And that's about 70% of what Iowa is. But those of us here in the state that have seen them probably realize that there are a lot more here than what most people would think. But I don't, I'm clueless on percentages of creatures here in this state. I'm always driving down the road, and I'm always scanning the tree line, looking for anything. I don't know. I've never seen one going down the road. I know there's reports of, even here in Iowa, of them crossing the road in front of people. But I think in the summertime, they're in the creek or river area, and they're surrounded by corn. Nobody can see them.
Which you had an experience with firsthand, which we will get to. And and full disclosure here, and I thought this part was so interesting for you, is that you actually, and you're not the first, but I don't hear this often, you're not the first to say, you know what, I really regret starting to look into Bigfoot because they're monsters. And like, you're you're going, I'm okay if I never have any more experiences with them and I don't see them anymore.
Well, it's in 2010. I started listening to blog talk radio shows in 2007. Some guy at work kind of turned me on to that paranormal whatnot, and I started listening to shows, and I was listening to everybody's shows at the time, and I finally, I think I got on, I think it was Abe's show that he had going, and I would be in the forum, and I'd say, hey, I'm from Iowa, and Connie Gwinnett got on and said, in the forum, hey, I'm in Iowa too, and Abe talked about her place and this, that, and everything else. And around 2010, Connie invited me down in July to her farm, but said, hey, I have a guy that has to call and talk to you first. And it was Abe. And Abe kind of made it clear quite a few times that, hey, you can come down and camp out, but this is my place, and it's like, hey, no problems there. I'm just, I just want to look into it. But my theory at the time was Connie was sharecropping, and she had about a 10 or 12 acre area, like what I described to you, that was corn, that they had planted corn at the time. And then behind that field was a stand of timber, and then behind that was there's a creek, and then that dumps into the Des Moines River. So I thought, well, when my sighting occurred, I'd already been, I took 2 weeks off and went down and camped behind their barn down there with Abe. And I'd already heard a whoop or two. Yeah, I wanted to look into it just for me, and to see is this actually real? All this stuff that Connie was talking about, does this actually go on down here, or is she crackpot?
Right.
And Abe was, doing his own thing, and I just thought, if I could see over the top of this corn, maybe they're back there walking around. I don't know. So when I had my sighting, I mean, it was in the daytime. And the thing that freaked me out was I was up on this kettle rail leaning against a tree for about 4 hours. And I have about 3 videos of me scanning across the top of the corn. And it's hard to watch because I'm moving back and forth, and I never videotaped before, and I should have just stayed still, and maybe had a tripod or something. But this thing stood up in the corn, and behind it, I could see where he stood up. I could see the corn rows behind it, and I could see 3 rows of corn. So it'd be one row of corn, and then 1 row kind of in the center of him, and then 1 row to the other side. Mm-hmm. This thing was 4 to 5 foot wide, and it stood up in 8 foot corn, and I seen it from just below the shoulders up. And my first thought in my mind was, I had an injury to my ankle at the time, but my first thought in my mind was, can I jump off this kettle rail and run to the house before it came through the corn to get me? I thought, this thing would probably catch me before I made it to the house. And the house was probably maybe 100 yards away.
Because you said when it popped up out of the corn, that was actually just after you had put the camera down, the video camera, right?
Yes, it was about 15 minutes earlier. It was a hot July day. It was probably 95 degrees, and the wind was blowing that, probably 20, 25 mile an hour wind. And, I was shaking. I have tremors. So my hands were shaking a little bit, and the whole body was shaking a little bit, hot, kind of dried out from the heat. And I just thought, man, I ain't getting nothing. I'm going to shut the camera off, put it down, and then I'm going to, through my binoculars.
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes later, scanning back and forth across the corn, just like I was with the camera, this thing stood up. And it didn't stand up, looking away or to the left or to the right. It was looking right at me. And that kind of freaked me out too. Later, weeks later, I got on Google Earth or some map program, and I went in and kind of figured out roughly where it was in the corn. And I took a measurement from where I was standing over to where I thought it was. It was about 80 yards away, near as I could figure. And, it just, what had happened was I kind of wish I had a little bit more time looking at it, because, it's funny, you listen to all these shows and exactly what these people say about their sightings is what I thought for the longest time was, did I actually see this thing?
Right.
Or was it a figment of my imagination? But I know I've seen it. It wasn't, if it was a figment of my imagination, I would be seeing them all over the place all the time. What had happened was the landowners, Connie's husband, they had a pool behind the barn, one of those plastic ones you put up in the summertime.
Right.
And he come out to treat the pool. So I heard movement behind me, and I'm like, I turned around to see what, who was what or who was walking behind me. And it was him. And I turned back to the cornfield, and it was gone. So,
was Abe anywhere around there at that time? And we're talking about Abe Del Rio. Of course, I've met him.
Yes.
He's a great person. Where was he?
Abe was on the property. I think he was in the house on the computer. And see, here's the funny thing. I had told Abe and Connie, I said, if they're actually here, if we could get, if I had a tree stand, or if we could get up in the tree or something and see across this corn, we might see something. Abe, at the time, Abe has lost 200 pounds.
Yeah, he's done incredible.
At the time, Abe was his heavy self, and he was walking around with a cane.
Yeah.
And Abe he said, look at me, there's no way I'm getting up on anything
to
look across that corn. I said, okay, well, I said, I'm here for myself, so.
Did you go in, though, and say, okay, so I did actually just see a Bigfoot, and was there any thought about actually going right over there to maybe see if there was any evidence left behind?
Yeah, well, I was still kind of stunned a little bit.
Totally understandable.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah. Oh, okay, you didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything to anybody until the next day. That where we were camping, there was behind the barn, they had kind of a place where you could sit, and they had a bricked area where they had campfires. And it was the next night before sundown. I said, I had a sighting yesterday. When I said that, it kind of pissed Abe off. But I said, look, I'm here for me. And I think around the same time, I had asked Abe, I said, what would it take for me to be a member of your organization? And he threw out some number in cash that I'd have to pay him, like, I don't know, $300 or something. I just, after that, I just thought to myself, I'm here for myself. I want to see if these things are actually real. It would have been we probably could have found a trackway up into that corn. But I just, I didn't want to go over there.
No, I don't blame you. I mean, you just had a paradigm shift. But Ty, why? So what was it your idea to look out over the corn because they would have good cover, or had there been other sightings from Connie and Abe maybe in that area?
at the time, Abe hadn't seen one yet.
Okay.
But no, it was just from the road, as you're driving from the south to the north to go to Connie's house, you go by a creek, and then there's some timber, there's a strip of timber, and then there's the cornfield. And from the road, whether you're standing or driving, you can't see over that corn. And my theory, it was my theory, but my theory was, if they're back there, if I can get up and look over the top of the corn, with me standing on that cattle rail, and that corn was 8 foot tall because I measured it. But standing on that cattle rail, I could just see over the tassels. I just thought the only way I'm possibly going to see anything is if I could see back into the timber. It wasn't the trees that were in the back. They were spaced. It was thick enough in there that between the trees there were a little bit of darkness, during the daytime. And when I was filming, it was for my little camera with a stock lens, I couldn't see far enough back in there to get a real good grasp of what was in that timber.
Right.
It was far enough back that it seemed like it seemed like I could see some shadows moving in there, but it was just too far away. From where I was at to the timber was maybe 100 to 120 yards. It was just beyond my reach. And I just figured these creatures are real, and they're as big as what people describe them as. I would be able to see them. I'd be able to see a head or shoulders walking around, moving around in that between the timber and the corn. And there was probably a strip of grass, maybe 10 or 12 feet, or maybe not grass, but there was a space between the timber and the corn.
Right. I mean, that thing was a behemoth, 4 to 5 feet across, and then you saw it from the shoulder, a little bit below the shoulders and up above 8 foot corn. So when it pops up, you don't have your camera up, but you do have your binoculars up. Did you get a second or two to see the face, or?
It was so long ago, but I seen it had a conical head. I got maybe about a 2-second visual of it before Connie's husband was walking behind me.
Right.
It was just, I seen how white it was. I seen the face. Right at about that time, I was thinking, how fast can I run to the house?
Yeah.
And then I heard Connie's husband walk behind me.
So would you say then, or could you say, is it fall more into the gorilla category or the more human-looking type?
I want to say it was more of the gorilla category in the face, because I can't give you a good description of what the face looked like. It was just almost too far away for your standard Sears 12 by 50 binocular. But I don't know if I'm glad I can't describe it, or if I wish I could.
I hear you. I think I would be torn on that too, and I've said that a lot of times, like, especially if it's the more human-looking type, I think it would really kind of mess me up.
I used to be able to, I used to go hiking in the woods all the time by myself. And now I got 2 hobbies. I go gold prospecting in creeks and rivers, and I go metal detecting. And I cannot get out of my vehicle and walk into woods anywhere by myself. I can't do it. I just cannot do it. It freaks me out. I
mean, so that one sighting alone did that. That changed your mind about it.
That one sighting alone scared me so much that I cannot go in the woods, and it doesn't matter where it's at. right behind me, there's 17 acres of timber, and I can walk back there. I'm always looking around for sign. Yeah, I'm better than what I used to be, but it's still, anytime I'm out in the woods, or I'm in a creek somewhere prospecting, I'm always looking. I have a strong sense of, what's the word?
Like self-preservation,
being aware.
like just being too smart to be like, oh, well, everything's okay. I am the apex predator, even if I have a gun. Because you mentioned having a gun, which I think is very smart, by the way. But I'm sure being in the humbling position that you were, plus it was a daytime sighting, which most people figure, well, as long as I don't go out at night, they're around during the day too. Knowing that, the guns that for the most part most of us might carry in the woods wouldn't be big enough. I mean, if one really came at you, right? I mean, unless you had the perfect shot, I guess.
I'd probably be shaking too much.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna upgrade what I have right now. I have a 9mm, and I think it has a clip of 15 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I put them all in the neck or in the mouth, that would be enough.
You might have a shot. But what is your thought, though?
Take one out.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to take one out. But what are your thoughts on the fact that they don't usually probably travel alone, or if they are alone, the other ones aren't very far, right?
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing. I was looking over the top of the corn. And with corn, how it's so closely spaced,
mm-hmm.
I didn't see anything parting ways like coming at me. So I don't think there was any of them closer. But I was looking. Who knows?
Well, and here's the other thing: is it had already stood up, knowing that you were right there. It had you pegged. It was looking at you right from the moment it popped up. So obviously, it had been watching you for a while. Now, the timing of it was a little interesting to me when I read your email, because I thought, well, you had the camera up for so long, and then it seemed like not too long after the camera went down, he decides to show up and he shows himself. I thought that was slightly interesting, the timing.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that too. It would have been nice to actually have that on film. Then I could watch it and, say, yeah, I'm not crazy. I did actually get this on film, but I did get that nighttime eye shine on video.
Yes.
And,
would you mind if I link that in the show notes for this episode?
You go right ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Ty.
And I don't know if you want to link the 14-minute one, or did you get on my Facebook page and look at there's like 3-minute and 57-second video of sound, and that's where Abe was smoking, and he was flicking his cigarette, and it was whiting out my screen, and I said, don't do that. I got something on video. And he goes, what? And I go, yeah, there were 3 beings over in the corn, and then they went away, and then around that time I said, there they are. They're straight out in front of us. And the little Sony camcorders, they got that flip out screen, and the little flip out screen is like 1.5 inches by 2 inches.
Yeah.
Well, that screen, it was kind of pixelated in about 8 or 9 places. So there were like 8 or 9 little white dots. And he goes, all that? And I said, no, it looks like 2 cars straight out in front of us. And that's when he looked at that and he goes, oh, and I said, that's when I said they were over in the corn, and then they disappeared. And I know it's them because the spacing of those eyes, they're so wide. And that's from, like, we were sitting on this stoop of this old house that Connie's husband's grandparents built back in 1847. I don't know. It's like midnight or something. No, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were out there, and I'm trying to film this stuff, and Connie and Abe are chit-chatting away, and they're saying stuff that I didn't want on audio, but anyhow.
So this was still while you were in that 2-week camping trip over
right
at Connie's place. Okay.
Yes, and I think I wrote down on the YouTube page a little description of the date. I don't remember if it was the 27th of July or something. I don't know, but it's a funny thing. 2 weeks later, I'm at home and I'm thinking, I don't have a daytime video of the area of the ice shine. You got to have like a daytime visual of the area, or at least I thought I needed. So I went back down there 2 weeks later in the daytime, told Connie, I stopped in, or I called Connie and stopped in there, and she goes, well, why don't you take my vehicle down? Otherwise, if you just pull in there, the neighbors are going to call the cops on you.
Mm.
So I went down there with a dial, one of those meter things that has a wheel and it clicks the feet out. I wanted to take measurements because there's things that you could see in that video at night that I wanted to know how far away they were. So one of the things that you can see when I'm shooting straight out is down the road there was a white mailbox, and I wanted, I don't know what the hell I thought I was going to do, but I wanted to take measurements of how far everything away was. So I go walking from the front stoop all the way down the road to the mailbox, and I'm standing there, I'm writing down measurements, and I'm looking to the south, and there's this lot, and it's all trees. And I heard what sounded like a wet foot sliding over a 55-gallon drum that was on its side. If you can imagine that sound. And I looked up across the ditch and into these trees, and a singular tree about 15 foot tall, maybe, I don't know, 3-4 inches in diameter, started shaking by itself. And I thought, oh, crap. I know what this is. I'm getting out of here. So on my Facebook page, there is a daytime video of that area.
So obviously you kind of scooted out of there quickly because you were by yourself and the trees start shaking. Were you able to get any measurements on where their heads possibly were?
No, it's no, because I was gonna. There was a lot of things I was gonna do, but I just, you were
kind of over it.
I don't know, overwhelmed by everything.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's one of those things where you go out looking, and then you get what you want, but then it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit more than what I wanted at the time. I didn't. You hear all these people on these shows. Oh, I want to see one. You don't want to see one. Just look at there's videos on YouTube that are real. You don't want to see it. It blows your mind how big it is. That's the biggest thing is you can't comprehend the size, and that's what scares you. It's so big, it's so wide, and their strength, is ungodly, and you realize at that time that you can't carry a big enough gun in there into the woods. I was watching. I watch YouTube videos every once in a while. I seen a video of a Smith & Wesson 500, and it's a revolver. They only have 5 rounds, but it's a it's big enough. I think that's the size gun that I'm going to buy, and I'll feel a little bit safer than my little tiny 9mm.
I have a 9mm as well. Same size clip. Have you seen, just to, digress a little, have you seen the Taurus Judge before?
Yeah, I've seen that, and I just read too many bad reviews, and I've thought about that.
Well, I think they make, I think maybe it is Smith & Wesson. Well, somebody makes the Governor, and it's the same one. I wonder if it's basically the same gun. You know how they can carry like the 410 rounds and all these other different rounds. I mean, it's a beautiful gun. It shoots a massive array of rounds. But look up the Governor too. I wonder if that got better reviews. I didn't know that. I didn't know the Taurus Judge got some bad reviews. For like jamming and stuff?
Yeah, jamming.
Oh, that's no good. That's the worst thing. I mean, it's the gun's whole point is to fire. So a jam is like the worst thing that can happen. Because you know what's so striking about your sighting to me is because I always try to put myself in everybody's shoes, and it's impossible to do so fully until you're in the situation. But like for a split second, you go, oh crap, it's real. But then the next split second, you're going, okay, well, could I make it out of here alive? Do I have time if it comes after me? Can I get back to that? Like that was your very next thought. That is terrifying. Yeah.
That was, I think my the first thought in my mind was, can I jump off this fence and run to the house?
Mm-hmm.
And this was 2010. 2007, I severely twisted my ankle, shattered it in a few spots, and I was still healing up from that. And I still don't jump down from any kind of height.
But you were considering it at that point because you thought, oh, this might be the only option that I have. Yeah.
But, yeah, and I do wish that maybe I would have looked at it more that way. I could have got a better look at the face. But I can tell you, it had a stunned look in its face. That I was there looking at it. I think it probably seen me from the tree line and thought, what is this thing? Because I wasn't...
Well, and sorry to interrupt you. Because if it's there a lot of the time and it sees Connie or Abe or Connie's husband, they're doing their regular everyday stuff around the farm and around the house. And here you are standing up on this thing for, how long were you standing up there? It was a long time, right?
I was up on that. Rail for about 3 hours.
Yeah, so this thing's going, well, look at this one. What is this one doing over here? He's doing something a little different. So you were probably quite the anomalous event going on, and drew at least a crowd of one. I mean, okay, so what about the hair? Was it dirty? Was it brown? Was it black? Did it have a lot?
It was brown, and from what I could see, I didn't, since I didn't see the full size of it, and I'm probably better off that I didn't. It didn't look like it was matted. It looked like it was fairly clean. I was far enough away that I couldn't see, like the hair flowing or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all I seen was from about maybe a foot down from the shoulder up. I do wish I had it on video, but that way I could all the naysayers that I had around that time would have been nice to say, well, this is what they look like.
You know how it is, Ty. Even if you did have the video to corroborate, certain people would still naysay. There's always those people, so don't worry about them. You know what you saw. So, okay, what about who departed the area first? Was it still standing there, or did you go ahead and get down?
No, well, I turned around and I looked at I don't remember his name. I looked at Connie's husband, and he was walking back with chemicals to treat the pool.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You already said that. You said you turned back around and it was gone. I'm sorry.
And I turned.
Yeah.
He left first.
Yeah.
But,
Or he just crouched back down, which is almost even creepier,
crouched.
right? He just sank back down, still watching.
Yep.
Mm.
It's funny. That's what everybody says. I looked away for just a second and looked back, and it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens. I think he realized that he was being viewed, and had that shocked look on his face. Just thought, oh, I don't want to be here, or I don't want to be viewed.
Yeah,
probably. But
I don't know. I just find that timing very interesting. I'll just say that again. I don't know. You were up there for so long, videoing for so long, and then it seems like a very short time after the video camera goes down and he pops on up. So anyway, interesting. All right, Ty, well, let's jump to 2016. You said it was the month of September. And you do, at this point, again, you're admitting, I was over Bigfoot. I didn't want anything to do with Bigfoot, but you still went out into the bush and did gold prospecting. And so let's talk about that nighttime sighting that you had in the camp. And there was several people there, like 12 or 13 people there?
Yeah, and actually, we're having an outing at the same place this weekend. So if I was a little bit better on my game, I've been searching for certain cameras. I would like to have video, but I don't have anything yet. But anyhow, so this is a farmer's property, and he owns a large chunk of land. Maybe if I were to ponder a guess, maybe 500 or 600 acres. This farmer has a little road that runs back through his property. It goes back through maybe a small stand of timber, maybe 5 acres or so. He has a creek, and that's where we go and prospect for gold. On the other side of the timber is a pasture, and that's where we go in and camp. People bring their motor home and or I don't know, trailers or whatever. And this is in, I want to say it was September, sometime middle of the month. Maybe it was the first part. Anyhow, it was a Friday night, and everybody was, outside, and it was dark out. We had a campfire going. We had a couple pop-ups up, and people were just sitting all around, kind of clumped in one group. And there were multiple conversations going on. And I was just listening to, what was being said. We usually sit around the fire in a circle. But this time we weren't, for whatever reason. We still had a fire going, and the fire there was a big tractor rim, and that's like a split rim or something, and that's what we build our fire in. Mm-hmm. And there was probably 1 or 2 foot flames. And anyhow, so it's about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and 2 of the members stand up, and they go over to the wood pile because they want to stoke the fire up. From where I was sitting to the fire ring was maybe 25 feet, and the guys that were getting the pieces of wood to throw into the fire, they were a little bit closer to me. They were maybe 15 feet away, and I'm kind of watching them. I can't really see them too well because it's you can't see your hand in front of your face dark. Mm-hmm. The one guy has a spotlight, and it's like he stops and he turns around, and he turns the light, or he raises the light up over where we had like a porta-john. And right when he raised the light up, here's a being standing, and this is quite, I didn't see his face. He was facing the east. I seen an arm, and I seen his main body. I didn't see his face. This thing was probably 60 feet away. I seen 4 to 5 inches of black hair. This Bigfoot was all black hair. All I seen was the from maybe thigh up to maybe the shoulder. And I don't know, for whatever reason, he had his hand out. But he was froze with this light on him. And the light was on him for just a short period of time. And the guy dropped the light and then lifted it back up, and it was gone. And just as fast as you can move your arm down and back up is how fast just in a kind of a slow motion, just dropping your hand or your arm down and up. And that's what he did. I know that this guy's seen this being. I don't know if he was a little bit, I don't know why he turned around. Unless he heard something. He must have heard something or had, maybe he had a sense of being watched.
Right, because it seems like he turned the light exactly where he needed to.
Yeah. At that time, I told my buddy that I was sitting next to, I said, hey, I just seen something over there. At the time, this friend of mine, he just thought I was crazy. He said, don't worry about it. There's nothing over there. You didn't see anything. It's dark out. There's probably just a cow over there. I said, okay, whatever. But this farmer had maybe 60 head of cattle, and they roamed out where we were all the time. We were in their pasture. So they stoked the fire up, and then very short period of time after that, maybe 5 minutes, Cody, the guy with the spotlight, said, hey, I'm going to bed. And it seemed a little odd that he decided to he just stoked the fire up. It seemed odd that he was going to go to bed. Mm-hmm. So I'd always thought that he's seen it. He had to have seen it, and about a year later, I called him and asked him, and he never admitted that he's seen anything, but it was last year. He's been talking about Bigfoot, and he hasn't ever, brought that subject up before.
And now he's talking about Bigfoot with you.
And, now he's talking about Bigfoot, and he has beliefs that I don't believe in. There's something about their spirit creatures, and they live in trees or something. I don't know what the hell he's thinking about.
Is he going on this upcoming trip to the same camp?
Probably so.
So the thing that kind of grabbed me there, which you mentioned, was it had its hand out. So do you think it was reaching for the tree in a motion, or it was mid-stride? So maybe that's what he heard, or
I don't know. I don't know if it had its hand on a tree. I don't know if I don't know. And I don't mean to be rude or racist or anything like this, but African Americans, if you look at their palms are pink, so it's a different color. I don't know if Bigfoot are like gorillas where their palms are black. Is there a color difference on their palm versus the rest of their body? Maybe that's just a human trait. But they say nobody knows what they are, if they have a percentage of human in them, or if it's only certain ones, or. But yeah, I never seen the hand, and maybe I'm glad I never seen the hand because I hear the hands are huge. But I just seen the hair flowing off the arm, and there was 4 to 5 inches of hair off the arm. And the next day, the next morning, before anybody else was really up, I went over to where that thing was. And this, the ground in this area was hard, kind of almost like a clay, and it was dried out, and hard as concrete. So I seen kind of there was grass about knee high. I seen kind of a parting of the grass, like maybe that's where it walked in from. But I didn't see, there was no impressions in the ground like tracks or whatnot. So
also, so it's got this massive light shined on it, which probably it kind of went, oh crap, oh God, they can see me. It didn't look over at all though, right?
No, it was it was frozen it just, if it was moving, it stopped. It was, I did not see no movement.
Yeah.
But as soon as that light went down and came back up, it was gone.
That's amazing. That's amazing that they can move that fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it dropped down or if this being seemed quite large, like it was 9 or 10 foot tall. So I don't know what kind of strides, and I didn't hear anything. Yeah, I don't think I doubt that there was a gun one in that camp, and I'm actually glad that it was gone when the light came back up, because Cody might have walked over there. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm sure it wouldn't have been a good deal if he did. I think they've always been around every time we go there. There's an older gentleman that used to throw a tent up a little bit further into the woods. He's passed now, and so I can't go back and talk to him. I want to say it was the same outing. This guy talked about the last time he camped in there, something walked up to his tent and just stood there. And this guy was like 84, 85 years old, and he had a million stories, and he would be always telling story after story, and when he was talking about this, I wasn't paying attention to what he was saying. I could hear him in the background, and I actually asked him at one time if he was an old gold prospector that used to go prospecting out in California or Colorado back, when gold was nothing, and had a lot of stories about that. And I asked him, have you ever seen anything odd or anything out in the woods? And he kind of pinned me down to what I was talking about. And I said, have you ever seen any evidence of Sasquatch? And, he never really come out and said anything, but I just wish I would have listened a little closely to his story that he had of what walked up to him when he was in the tent.
Yeah, that would be terrifying, even if it was just some crazy person, because most people wouldn't do such a stupid thing, because a lot of people are armed in the woods, so that's creepy.
Yep, it is.
All right, so now speaking of creepy, this last one that we're going to talk about, I'm going to be honest with you, Ty, this is extremely creepy. This whole you prospecting out at this old Boy Scout camp area.
I was out there metal detecting, and this was the second time that I was out at this place, and this is from where I live. This is about 200 miles east of me, and it's about a 300-acre park. It's an old Boy Scout camp, and it was a Boy Scout camp from 1927 to 1993, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my buddy, we stopped at the entrance of this park, and we were metal detecting a kind of an open field, maybe 300 by 300 foot area, and people can go in there and tent camp and whatnot. And from aerial photographs that I have of the area in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, this whole area was all open.
Mm-hmm.
But now 90% of it is timber. I believe the scouts probably planted trees up in through there. Our buddy's up closer to the road, and there's trails all through the timber, and the trails are about 5 foot wide, and they're mowed paths. I'm walking back to, there's 6 pine trees that are closely spaced in this one area. And I just thought there must have been at some point in time some reason that they put them trees there. There's no other trees of that type in that timber. But further in the park, there's a circle of the same type pine. And these trees are 75, 80 foot tall. Back where I was walking, I just thought, well, I'm going to find some good coins in the ground here. I hear this. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just kind of like a chatter. For some reason, I took it as a female voice. It seemed like it was words, but I don't know what it was exactly that was said. And I have earmuffs on. So I got these muffs on, and I got tones coming in that are loud, and they're different pitches of tone. And I hear this voice. This voice is so loud that I hear it through my muffs. And I just took it as, somebody's walking right up behind me. They had to have been right up behind me for me to be able to hear this through my muffs. And I'm thinking, well, the heck with it. I'm not turn around. I pull one side of the earmuffs off my head, off my ear, and I turn around and there's nothing there. There's nobody there. Nothing. I'm like, that's weird. I'm concentrating on my metal detector and what I'm hearing with the coil over the ground. And I take another step and another step forward because I'm right in front of these trees. And right in front of me, I hear moo. And I'm like, what the hell is that? That sounds like some kid making a moo sound. And I look up and there's nothing in front of me. There's I'm about 15 feet away from these pine trees. As soon as you step off the trail, there's weeds about maybe just above maybe thigh height, maybe 3 foot tall, 2 or 3 foot tall. And as soon as I hear that, my mind is spinning. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. So I turn around and I briskly walk back up to where my buddy was at. I'm about 10, 15 feet away from him, and I look at him, and he goes, what's the matter? And I said, nothing, don't worry about it. And back up where we were at, we're back up in the open, somewhat lightly spaced trees. And I looked back behind me. I didn't see nothing. I never seen nothing, but I heard the sounds. And whatever was behind me was right behind me, and whatever was in front of me was within maybe 10 feet.
Mm. So what you heard was someone or something making a really screwed up cow sound. Like you knew it wasn't a cow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I knew it wasn't a cow. And there were cows. You could hear cows maybe a mile away. But this wasn't a cow because, cows do make moo sounds, but not like this.
Yeah. You're like, nice try, but no.
Yeah. It was like, and there at the time, other than there's a caretaker that lives there. She has a son, but at the time there was one person. There's a cabin that you can rent, and it's further in the park, maybe a quarter of a mile away from where we were. And that person was in there. They had spent the night, and they were cleaning out the cabin to leave. But other than that, there was nobody else there. This location was probably within maybe an eighth or quarter of a mile from the Wapsie-Pinnakin River. But they didn't
want you there.
They didn't want me there. The thing that scares me the most is I'm not even thinking of, I wasn't even thinking about Bigfoot. And the thing that I don't like is I feel like I opened Pandora's box, and I can't get the lid closed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard here a couple of years ago, I heard a two-tone howl behind my place, that lasted about 20 seconds. And I've been out kind of sight surveying creeks, and I've heard screams, and it's like, God, I just want it to go back to the way it used to be. But I think what it is the more you get familiar with this subject, the more you notice things.
Well, and also, Ty, don't you think that going back to that Boy Scout camp, and we should mention, that was very recent. That was, October of last year that happened?
Last year, yeah.
If that had been your friend who maybe isn't into Bigfoot or doesn't really care, if they had heard that moo, or the chatter and all this other stuff, they may have just kept on metal detecting and gone deeper into the forest or something, and actually been in a maybe a bad situation. We don't know. Or, I'm just saying, like, for it to happen to you, you picked up on that immediately, and you're like, okay, time to go.
Well, see, my buddy we had a situation here about 3 years ago, and I don't remember, it might have been 2016, maybe it was 2017. We went out to Colorado to go gold prospecting out there. He had rocks thrown at him. I went out to Colorado with my buddy Jeff and a guy from over by the Mississippi, and the three of us went out for 2 weeks. So basically, we went to one spot one day, and then the next day we went to another spot. Well, the first day, I hiked in with, 20 or 25 pounds of gear, and it seemed like a lot of weight. And we were finding good gold where we were at. I figured we were going to come back. So I took about half my gear off the pack, and I buried it underneath this pine tree. Well, the next day we didn't go back to the same spot. So the next day we found a better spot, and that's where we were going to prospect for the rest of our trip. So that next day I told the guys, hey, I'm going to hike up the valley about a mile, and I'm going to go get my gear, and I'll be back. Well, when I was gone, they had rocks thrown at them, and the rocks came from the direction of thick timber. There's no way, they didn't see anybody, and there's no way that human could have precisely thrown rocks and hit them without being within sight. So this buddy of mine, Jeff, he's a believer now.
I mean, has that changed his mind on going out, or has it kind of lit the fire, like he's interested?
It's lit fire. He's a believer now, but he still goes out quite a bit by himself. He hasn't seen anything yet.
Well, yeah, and do you think he'll still go out by himself once he does see one?
No. I'm guessing he'd be done.
Yeah. You know, as much as I talk about these things, and you know that I'm in the camp of I still want to see one, just so I can say, okay, no, I know for sure that they're real. I can honestly say that I'm pretty sure that once I saw one, and being humbled in that way, their size and their speed and how stealthy they are, that I would probably guess that I wouldn't want to be in the woods alone anymore.
I would think that you'd probably still go out, as a, maybe a group setting or whatnot. You have a bunch of different venues that you talk about, but I'm sure you'd still go out. I'm guessing how the sighting goes. If you have a terrifying sighting, then yes, maybe you might never want to go out in the woods again, whether you're with a group or not. But if it's maybe it's not a charge, maybe you see one from a distance, you'll probably
I don't know, though, because once you have a confirmation that they're real, then when you, even if it's not a terrifying sighting, then when you hear the terrifying sightings, you're going to go, well, that could have happened to me because I know that they're real. I don't know. I think that the paradigm shift would be tremendous. Just like what you had out at Connie's place. You didn't have to get charged. You didn't have to have anything overly dramatic happen to you. Yours was not a dramatic sighting, but that is still life-changing because you know what? You know it's real. You know that they're out there. You saw it with your own eyes. Yeah,
it's just if they weren't so damn big,
Yeah. Yeah.
Beings that they're just you just cannot wrap your mind around their size.
Thank you for coming on, but if anything comes up, this next weekend with one of your outings and, you want to tell me about it, I'd love to hear about it. Wouldn't have to be for the show if you didn't want to, but yeah, keep me in the loop because I'm interested in these locations you've been talking about.
All right, yeah, because I have always thought that I would like to place a few video cameras in a few different locations for the summer. And I've thought about it, and I've looked into it. People that have had sightings, I could care less about people, not you, of course, but those that don't believe or have never seen one. I just want proof for me. Yeah, granted, I have the eyeshine video, but man, even if I had a FLIR for this place that we're going this weekend.
Well, it seems like even in your own quote-unquote backyard, I mean, if you set up FLIR or night vision there, maybe some trail cams. I mean, there's always we could talk about that for another hour, but we won't about, can they see trail cams and the lights and the this and that. But, I mean, have you ever thought about just even setting up an audio recorder on your own property since you heard the screams and the two-tone howl and all of that?
Well, I live here. I don't want to know anything that's
I hear
that
ya.
close behind me.
I hear you. Yeah, here
But
in the streams was probably enough. You're like, okay, they're just moving through. Thank you. That's all I need to know. Like you just tell yourself that's what I would do if it was my property. You don't want to be scared at your own house, right?
well, when it gets dark out, I go inside.
Yeah.
I never used to be a scaredy cat of the dark. I used to hang out outside all the time, but it gets dark out, I
You're
go
inside.
inside. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't make me sound like a big chicken shit. But,
It makes you sound like an honest human being because I can say, and I've never seen one, that your home is supposed to be your sanctuary and you don't want to be terrified at your own house. But, I will say that you have a healthy dose of being cautious, not going and staying outside or doing, turning on floodlights and doing yard work just outside the reach of the lights or something. That's not a good idea because you know what's out there.
yeah.
You don't sound like a chicken shit. You sound like you're being properly cautious.
Thanks.
No, that would be me. I've said a lot of times, everybody hears me say it every probably second or third show. It's totally different when it's your own house, whether it's a ghost or a Bigfoot or whatever the hell is going on. It's completely different when it's your own home. It's supposed to be your sanctuary.
Yeah.
No, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and I appreciate you being patient with the back and forth with the scheduling. The scheduling, people don't realize is always, there's a lot going on in the background, with everybody's schedules and everybody's busy. So, all right, Ty. Well, you take care, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
And thank you. Bye-bye.